And you are listening to the High Plains Pundit podcast. I am the High Plains Pundit, Dan Butcher. We have a great guest to start off tonight's show. As I mentioned, Stanley, who is the current Place One City Council member on the Amarillo City Council. He has decided to step up and run for mayor. And we're going to talk about that decision, what led up to it, what made him decide to do that. And we'll also get into some of the important issues that he would like to address during this particular campaign, and if he is elected mayor. Once again, 515-605-9736 with your questions or comments. So let's welcome back to the show. He's no stranger to you folks that listen to the High Plains Pundit podcast. He's been a guest on here several times since his very first campaign for city council a few years ago. We welcome back to the show Stanley. How you doing tonight, my friend?
Man, Big Dan, always good to be on your show. I know you guys threaten to never have me on again every time, and here you go. You let me come back on again.
Well,
I appreciate it, man. Look forward to.
Well, here's the thing. We like causing trouble. We like stirring things up a bit. Most of all, we like making people stop and think. We like them to use that brain that God has blessed them with, right? And so that's why we keep having you back on, man, because we always have great discussions. We have great ideas. Think about all the great things that have come out of our discussions and great ideas and stuff we continue to talk about. And, some people see that as troublemaking, stirring the pot a little bit. You know what we call it around here? We call it common sense.
Well, I enjoy your show. You guys do a great job of educating the voter and the taxpayer around town, and so I always enjoy getting on with you guys. I learn something, and hopefully I contribute to the conversation a little here and there as well.
You bet. And Mike will be joining us here in just a second. He is on the queue. Hey, Mike, say hi so everybody knows you're there and you haven't taken off to the land of Oz.
Yeah, well, this is, I decided I'm going to try to call in and see if this worked, with AT&T sucking, XL being outages all over town. And this will be my first podcast in the dark. Like, I have no power, so this is a lot of fun.
No, true. I have actually broadcast. I've actually done the show, not too a couple of years ago on the chat when we were having those rolling blackouts through the city because of the weather and stuff. I actually ended up being the only person on the chat. They were out at KDC, but they could see me. So I'm sitting here. All of a sudden, I kind of became a de facto host for a few minutes and we get everything back together out there. But I've actually hosted this show with nothing but my headset and my cell phone before because of the power going out and stuff. So, folks, we can still do the show. We might do it blind, but you know what? We can lead each other through it. So, Cole, let's talk about this. There was I mentioned in my opening, there was a big movement to try to get Alex Fairley to run for mayor. And then, of course, Alex finally made the ultimate decision that he did not want to run, okay? And, you had made it perfectly clear during this time, too, that, you were perfectly fine, running again for the Place One on the city council. You felt you had a lot still to do there and different things. And, of course, Alex announced. But you also kind of mentioned, hey, there might be a circumstance that I would run for mayor. And, of course, Alex announced he wasn't running, and you made the decision to step up and say, hey, I'm going to run for mayor. So kind of take us through, what that process was like leading up to helping you make the decision and what ultimately, helped you to make up your mind that you wanted to run for mayor.
Man, I tell you, after we announced, I went to a city council meeting and I gave Frida a side hug and said, hey, lady, how are you? And she said, well, I heard you had an announcement today. And I looked at her and I said, now, Frida, I couldn't let you have all that fun by yourself, right? And so, sure enough, man, I just wasn't willing to let her run that race by herself. And so I really thought I had this thing kind of figured out with Alex running for mayor, and a couple of other good, strong candidates. I really like the political landscape that we have right now. I mean, we've got 23 people out there, a pretty diverse crowd. I'm looking forward to seeing who all, gets put in different places. And I hope to be your mayor and get that center chair. But it was just honestly, for me, it was a good 4 months of really kind of working through it where it didn't hit me all at once. We kind of all talked about what would this look like, what would that look like. And when I say we, I just mean myself, Alex, and a few other people. And so I'm pretty encouraged with where I'm at. It wasn't my timing. I think with my daughter being a senior in high school, my other daughter starting a business in Canyon, it sure seemed to me like it'd be a better 2 more years in place one, maybe 4 more, and then try to step up. I'm 44 years old, so I still got plenty of miles left on me. And I just wasn't in a hurry, but this is how it's worked out, and I think it's worked out for the best. I think Amarillo is at a really critical point in its growth, and I'm looking forward to being able to contribute and impact it as much as I can.
One of the big things that we're talking about, in all of our interviews so far with the candidates is leadership, because it's going to play a very important role in this next city council, because we are guaranteed at minimum 4 brand new faces on the city council, okay, in places 1 through 4. And then we're obviously guaranteed a new mayor. It could possibly be a new face. It could be one of 2 familiar faces, either Cole Stanley or Frida Powell, who are both serving on the city council right now. So one way or another, leadership is going to really play a big role in moving the city forward with this next city council. So kind of tell everybody, how leadership is going to play, and some of the things that you've learned serving on the city council so far, and some of the things in your everyday life that you're going to bring to this campaign, and that you will bring to the mayoral chair if you are elected this coming May in the form of leadership.
Yeah, if you'll let me steer the conversation just a little bit in that vein.
Go ahead.
I feel like this year is poised to bring about the truest form of a representative government that we've had in quite some time. And so
yes,
I think that the diversity, the ability to mix up the entire council all at one time, along with everything else that's going on in Amarillo right now, from the Fairley lawsuit, the Civic Center issue, just everything. We have more people that are stepping off of the sideline and getting in the game, whether you're talking about CISD, AISD, school board, AC Board of Regents, city council, county government. You see it across the board. People just like me that say, hey, I'm not a politician. I'm not in government in any way. I don't have an aspiration there, but I can serve and I can lead. And so I feel like you truly have people that are running saying, hey, I'm a leader, therefore I'm a good representative, versus the other side of, well, if I get elected, then I feel like I'm a leader, which is a really bad situation for us as citizens when, your criteria or your qualifications are that you got elected. I don't like that. I want your criteria and your qualifications to be what you've done previous to that election. So I'm looking forward to that, and I think that form of leadership, that true representative form of government, leads it down the path that I like, which is small, local government. Government works best when it gets out of the way of your everyday citizen.
Mike?
Yeah, we definitely like the small and limited government, right? And I think you've set great examples on how your leadership style is, right, based on your voting record. And that's something that I think is will attract a lot of people to you, is the fact that you're consistent. You're not wishy-washy like the rest of the council. So, I find it amazing that we don't have more of a public outcry. I mean, I hear it and see it on social media, but I'm not seeing it in other ways that I would expect. How do you think this is going to be challenge-wise? Do you expect it to be a steep uphill battle for mayor, or do you think it's going to be just a very difficult and daunting challenge?
So, honestly, my expectations are that you have a field of 23 people across the council. And so that means every public forum that you have, they're going to limit everybody to 3 quick minutes. You're not really going to get a lot of back and forth. And so it's going to be a hard one for the everyday citizen to get educated on who we are and what our policies are. So for me personally, I have a huge advantage in that, my 2 years, though it's been crazy fast and it's been a little bit of a fist fight a lot of the way, I've had some very clear votes. I'm the standout vote every time they say, well, the lone dissenting vote, was Mr. Stanley again. And you can look at that record, and as you look back over the last 2 years, you're like, oh, I see it. I see why he voted that. I see what the issue was. And a lot of times, even at the time, you may not have known, why is he against that? That sounds really good. Well, yeah, it sounded great on the surface. But then once we got into it, it didn't have the right procedures, or it didn't have the right policies, or it didn't meet a statute. Great example is just doubling the citizens' tax rate without, so much as asking them, having a first and second reading on the Civic Center. Some of the other things that we have in my race, you've got a guy named Don Collins that nobody really knows that well, and he comes with some good experience and some good policies, and I think he's a formidable, candidate. So it's not just Frida and myself. There's 4 others in there. And then I like the fact that we're different. I mean, I'm going to be super positive. When I ran against Master Chief Tillery and then old Gunny Brown, we were as friendly as we could be, right? I plan on being as friendly as I can with everyone that's running in that race. Even though we're not friends, I can be friendly, and I'm going to tell you straight up, I like Frida. I think she's a sweet person. I think she's a fun person, but she's not the leader that I am in our particular style and the expertise that we both bring. We're as different as you could be night and day. And you can look back over, the last couple of years and see our differences. And so I'm just going to expand upon those and then kind of let everything fall where it goes.
Sure. Well, I really want to know, from running with, and I'm glad you brought up Jason and Gunny, because, I kind of miss having Jason on the show and it's good that he comes around time to time. However, I want to know, are you taking lessons learned from your first race when you were up against Jason and going to apply them to the mayor's race, or do you think the mayor's race needs its own kind of run?
Mike, I think it's totally different. I think my experience was void. I had ideas, I had ideals, I had principles, but I had zero experience when I ran against Gunny and Jason, both campaign experience, but then also council experience. So I've told everybody this, for the last 2 years, like, I have been given an education that you cannot pay for in any of the elite colleges, universities. I've learned so much about civics, policy, legal, accounting, budgets, police, fire, public safety, you name it. So this run for me will be totally different because, I know what my purpose is. I know what my identity is. Back then, I just kind of thought I knew who I wanted to be, and I think I did a pretty good job of staying true to my roots. But, my vision right now for the city of Amarillo is we have got to get back to basics. It is fundamental that we do the fundamentals. I'll spare you with too many sports analogies, but man, you drill those fundamentals, and police, fire, public safety, water, sewer, infrastructure, streets, and cleaning up your neighborhoods. I mean, those are your fundamental basic core of a good government, and those are the things we need to focus on. And so I'm going to push for that and run on that. And if I get elected, that's what you're going to see me put into practice.
You know, Cole, I'm going to switch to some. I'm already starting to get piled up with listener questions, and this one is kind of standing out because I know that a James Skank has talked about this. Here's a shout out to James. I know James has spoke about this the last two city council meetings in a row, and of course our good friend Craig Gauthier has also sent me a question about this, and this has to do with, and I think this question actually goes further. I think it has to go. And you've been on with us before. We talk a lot about, communication, building trust, and different things between the constituents and the city council. But a lot of this revolves around, access to our elected officials, and a lot of it has to do with public comment at the city council meetings. Now, obviously, there's a lot of rules and laws and different things that apply to this, but it looks like there are some things that we can do, to maybe change up the public comment situation a little bit. And so, first of all, just to kind of answer, what James has been talking about for a lot longer, quite honestly, than just these past two city council meetings. But what Craig has brought up tonight, kind of want to know, what are some of your ideas on what can we do to change up the public comment section of our city council meetings. And I want to take it further than that, okay? That's just part one of this question. Part two is, I'm taking an opportunity in this election. And this goes back further than this current the group of four plus Stanley, okay? I kind of keep you a little bit separate from this group of four, okay, because they all came in together. But when they were elected in 2017, I had every one of them on my show, and I said, hey, it's time to, this is Amarillo's tear down this wall moment. And I used that velvet rope at the city council meetings that was put up right before they took office as an example. That thing needs to go. The reason it's a symbol, I think it's a symbol of the divide, It's a symbol of the divide. But there is an actual divide between City Hall and our voters right now and the citizens of Amarillo, because it seems like there's a distrust, a lack of communication. There's a lot of improvements that need to be made there. And so I'm putting kind of everybody that's running for office, on notice this time that this is Amarillo's tear down that wall moment. We've got to do it this time. And I'm going to be preaching this from my microphone and from as loud as I possibly can, Cole. So, number one, is there any way we can tweak, the city, the public comment, maybe even the city council meetings as a whole? And number two, what are we going to do to bridge that divide, break down that wall of mistrust, miscommunication between the citizens and City Hall right now?
So I personally feel like it's interpretive. I think that they are interpreting that statute for public comment in a very rigid way, and they're warning,
right,
kind of council into having ongoing discussions with a citizen during public comment, and it's taken out of context, and it doesn't go towards the best the best form that you would have for that. And so personally, here's what I think needs to happen. I agree with Jimmy Joe that we need to have public comment, and we need to give you your 3 minutes to talk about anything and everything that's city related. So I think we should allow you to get up there and talk about anything, whether it's on the agenda or not, as long as it pertains to city business. So I don't want you to get up there and tell me about how you don't like the popcorn at the movie theater. That's not my
right.
lane. However, if you want to get up and you want to talk about how your alley is full of trash and nobody's been down it in 2 weeks and you've called 13 times and nobody's called you back, that is my business, and I want to hear about it so I can fix it, whether we had a trash agenda item or not, But then outside of that, I think that when it comes time to vote and when it comes time to decide, if you actually do business in front of your community in a genuine way, then I think you need to hear from your citizens while you're discussing it. And I would allow, and I think we should want that, for us to be able to recognize somebody that's a citizen to stand up and say, hey, you guys didn't address this. Are you thinking this way? And us to be able to look at each other and say, I didn't realize that. Like, that is true. How are we going to overcome that? And so right now what you have is some pre-made decisions, in my opinion, of how we're going to operate. And, there's performances, there's kind of the scripted writing, it all comes out. I argue the best I can sometimes on things that I feel like are not in our best interest. And everybody just kind of looks and nods their head. And then here comes Frida, I make a motion, Mayor, to adopt ordinance, whatever. And so we just move right along, and I look around and I'm like, guys, do y'all see this? And honestly, 98% of my citizens do see it. It's very few people that don't see that. And we are missing the boat, not only in trust, but in just avoiding mistakes and having failures, because it's just the four of them making these decisions, along with staff recommendation. I mean, you're truly not getting everybody out there to contribute to a conversation, and it's not a public forum. It's a public presentation, and so I hope I do a pretty good job with my facial expressions when I'm sitting up there, and I'm a decent poker player, because I really don't want to be rude, and I want to honor the council, and I want to honor those chambers, but, a lot of this just goes against my grain. I don't like it at all.
Well, Cole, you bring up what you guys are going is really the ability of citizens to interact with the council. And, I think there needs to be some legal interpretation and utilization of the open meetings requirements, because there are exceptions to that the city council doesn't make any effort to try to qualify for, right?
Sure.
Which is educating people is one exception. So you can have the entire council together in a forum, outside of City Hall, and they can spend some time educating the citizenry and interacting with the citizenry, but we don't want to do that. There's been no effort made that I've ever seen to do that, because they always fear the almighty open meetings violation. But I think with the proper legal perspective, and the true intent being to educate the citizens, I think they could get around some of that and actually allow for these kind of conversations to take place. Would that be something, if you were elected mayor, that you'd be willing to look at?
Definitely. I think that's a must. And so if you really want to get down to it, kind of the brass tacks, and you really want to say, like, how do we move forward? How do we pull people together? How do we really get the points of view that we need out there and build trust and regain momentum and agree to move forward on things, even if it's not my idea or your idea? The way you do it is you got to do business in front of your public. You can't have everything pre-decided and kind of cooked up or pre-baked and then walk it out there and vote for it. And so the Open Meetings Act is very clear. This is not difficult to understand. There are things you cannot do. There are things you can do. And we have elected to be very, very rigid on our interpretation, overly cautious. And so we allow for no interaction with our public. And that is not that's not correct according to the law. And then as you see it, North Heights was a good example when they were wanting to rezone people's personal or private property over there. We had great discussion. We called people back up to speak that we had heard from the first time. So even in our own examples, we're showing you that we can do it. It's just a choice as to when we do it. And so I'll just tell you one other philosophical truth. I'm not going to ever trust the government as long as it's telling me to trust it. and asking me to just take it at its word.
Right.
I will trust a government that says, look, you don't have to trust me. Here's the numbers. Here's the data. Here's where we did this. Here's our conversation. You're free to come and watch it. And that's the system. That's the representative government that we all have. It just doesn't function that way right now because making the sausage is pretty ugly, and it just doesn't look good. You know, it's not political in its correctness. And so I think there's a lot of people like me. And I think that when you get to the place to where you say, look, you can trust us because you don't have to. You know, here's the actual numbers, here's the actual budget, here's what our goals are, here's what we're doing, then I think you're going to see there's a lot of latitude. I think there's some grace. I think there's some understanding from your citizenry towards your elected officials. We're just going to be volunteers, and I think that's what we should be.
Yeah, I am of the mindset, the similar mindset, right, where I don't trust a government that tells me I have to trust them. That's just not how this government was formed. That's not what the country was not designed to function that way. They work for me, the constituent. So, you know, I have a hard time with people that level of control. And to me, you know, that I take this rigidity in the way they handle comment periods and the open meetings concerns that I know some of them have had in the past. It bothers me because it seems like more that they don't care about our feelings, because there are avenues to interact as a group, as a council in whole. There are avenues to do that, but they don't want to make the effort to do that because that requires transparency. It opens them up, makes them vulnerable to answer tough questions. You know, that's why some people won't come on this show, is because they're afraid they're going to get, you know, hammered. And we just don't do that. I mean, I get where they might think we would, but, you know, I've never hammered somebody to where they couldn't answer a question. My job is not to set people up and interview them. I mean, obviously, you know, we could give you a totally hard time for being friends with Tillery. I mean, that right there, you know, because I like to call him tax and spend Tillery.
Never get elected if people knew.
Yeah, I know it. But I think, you know, that's what stands out to people about you, Cole, is the fact you're willing to go above and beyond to interact with anybody. And you're not afraid to have conversations one-on-one or in groups. That shows. And that's like, you know, I was talking to Blair about this and during his campaign, when he's going out and knocking on doors, going out and meeting people, that wins those people over, because when they see you being consistent in your message, your voting record's consistent, you know, your words match your actions, that consistency is conveyed. So do you think that there's going to be any opportunity, like you said, with these a lot of those forums that will be coming around? They only give you 3 minutes. If I gave you 5 minutes to say 5 things, or one or 2 things that you want to do most importantly that matter most to you, what would those be?
So I think it's an uphill battle with this many candidates, and that we're all going to need to be a little sharper, a little more refined and polished with our message. Otherwise, you're going to get lost in the weeds. And so, like, here's where I will stay sharp and pointed with you so that your listeners hear what my intentions are. Everything in Amarillo comes back to the budget. And so if I tell you, hey, my goal for Amarillo is to get back to basics, you know, let's start with the basics and let's lay a foundation. You know, I'm a builder, so this is the way that it works in my day-to-day business. And so if I said, hey, let's get back to basics and let's prioritize, let's lay a good foundation. The budget is your foundation, and where you put your money is where your priorities are. And so I would lay that foundation with police and fire first, you know, first responders. I would also put in there emergency management and everything else that is faceted to that. And that would be my foundation. I think that your public safety has to be key. And everything that I've tried to do over the last 2 years, what they've said to me every time is, well, we just can't do that without raising taxes. Well, we just have to raise taxes. We have to do this. We have to get that, you know, pushed through an election. And honestly, it's just not true if you're willing to look at the budget as a whole. And so the first thing that I would really do is I would try to take that budget and tear it apart and really see where the money's at and how much money do we have that we could spend on laying this foundation. The next thing would be streets and infrastructure, water and sewer. And I know where the money is on water and sewer. That's easier for you guys to see that because that's an enterprise and it's not in the general fund. So we know we have money there that we can both borrow against for revenue bonds to go out and annex and bring new customers, new houses, new taxing units and new fees. So that's money well spent. That's good business, But those would be my two basics. And then the last thing is just kind of your quality of life, and I feel like it's more cleanliness than anything. Trash hauling, picking up trash, cleaning up the parks, trimming the trees, all that kind of goes hand in hand with everything that I feel like Amarillo is, when it comes back to family and sports and, out in your neighborhood walking your dog. And those are the things that I think we're going to need to be very pointed on as we move forward. I know I have a clear message. I think that if you really look at what my abilities would be for the next 2 years with what I'm being handed, I'm going to have a good plan that I can execute. If I were invited back and the citizens say, hey, we're going to let you, do this job, I've got 4 new recruits that's, some may never have seen the general fund budget before. They may not understand INS versus O&M, So we've got to be realistic in where we're at as a council and what we're going to have to do to move forward. So it's going to be really important that we're willing to deal with that budget right off the bat.
We've reached the bottom of the hour already, and we're flying by with Coach Stanley. You'll be a part of the conversation, 515-605-9736. I did have a couple of callers on the line. Y'all dropped too quick on me. I promise we will get to you as quick as we can. So please call back. I wrote the numbers down, so I'll put you on priority. I've got a couple of other in the queue, but I want you guys to call back real quick, and I'll make you a priority if you'll call back within the next 5 minutes or so, and we'll get you on. Cole, I want to dig a little bit deeper into public safety because, first of all, earlier this past week, you received a very important and I think very big endorsement from the Amarillo Professional Firefighters Association. This was actually the first time this organization has ever endorsed any political candidate. So that upon itself carries, a very heavy weight on it and a lot of responsibility behind it because you are talking about our firefighters and, first responders, public service and stuff. So, obviously I want to dig a little bit further with that mind into public safety because, you haven't been on the city council for 2 years now, back on the campaign trail, starting to hit the events. You've had the opportunity, to visit with our first responders, the people that are on the front lines dealing with this stuff every day, our officers, our dispatchers, our firefighters, et cetera, et cetera. And you've had the opportunity to visit with the public as well. Moving forward, if you are elected and take the mayor's seat, what are some of the areas that you think that are of most importance that we need to address as far as public safety in Amarillo right now?
So it was huge for me to see the local 542, which is our firemen, come out and guys, they made T-shirts with my name on it. I did not expect that at all. I had no idea that they would be that involved. They have really said, hey, we got your back. And I think it comes from 2 years of them being able to see that, I've got theirs, And when I got elected, I didn't realize I was in the fire business. I thought that the fire department would kind of run on its own and that what I was dealing with would be more like trash and potholes and things like that, and it's not that way at all. Your council members have a great deal to decide and to do with what happens with your police and your fire and public safety. And so I've really tried to steer towards those guys and like, man, if I was out there, would I need those new turnout uniforms? Would I want this? Would I hope to have this piece of equipment? And so every time they've asked for something, I've just felt like, of course, like that's a given. You know, there's got to be something else we could give up and make sure that y'all have what you need. And so for them to come out, it was huge. And you're right, they've never done that before. So to me, it comes with some weight. You know, I don't want to let them down. So I want to be the man that they think I am. You know, in kind of fighting the good fight and keeping them first. There's a lot of little things that add up to big things. You know, and so I couldn't tell you every little thing or lay out for you any one big thing. It comes down to we've got a good academy on police and on fire, and we've got to be able to train from within, train up those people that are already Amarilloans that are going to stay here. Their roots are already here, and put them out there. Within like 6 months, 12 months, they're rolling, and we got to be able to pay them enough to make it worth it. And so their budget matters to me, their equipment matters to me, and then the ability of just building that camaraderie. I think it comes down to a little bit of legacy. You know, we've got some really good camaraderie and legacy in our police department and in our fire department. You know, I had lunch with a guy the other day. I think he's third generation police officer. And so that's what we've got to build on. And if we keep that, then it's not always about money and how much the job pays. Obviously, for most of those guys, it's not. You know, they're making other decisions for what they want to do with their vocation. And the more we can build on that as a community and rally around those guys, the better off we're going to be.
Mike?
Oh, man. Well, I think we've talked about communicating a lot, and there's still that gap of apathy. You know, we've talked about this every time you've been on, and we talk about this with just about every candidate. You know, how are we going to combat this in this cycle? Because I talked to quite a few people this morning, just kind of out and about, standing outside at the church downtown, and was talking to people, and you know, I was actually looking for Alex Fairley because I wanted to track him down and pigeonhole him for a minute, and you know, I think there's a lot of apathy that shows through in not just voters, but just life in general right now. It seems like everybody's got, you know, the economy is weighing on everybody. You know, I think our city government as it stands now, you're the shining star on that current city council. Give me two thoughts on how you think we can improve that apathy other than communication, because we know that's going to help, but just two things.
Yeah, let me politely and respectfully just disagree. So, like, I know that there is that feeling of apathy, right? But then take a look. It takes a minute to get off the sideline. You know, when you think about where I was, I mean, I kind of came out of nowhere, but I had been learning and reading and watching and doing stuff for a full year before I ran. So it took me a while before you knew I was there and that I was no longer part of that apathetic problem. Look at these school board races. You know, look at guys like Derek Thomas, you know, local business guy, owns a couple restaurants. He's in the building business. I mean, he's running for a school board. So I see that over and over again right now with people. Robin Leah is another good example. And so what it comes down to is I think as a polite culture, kind of that true Texan cowboy style, you know, people, we will tolerate a lot. But then I disagree. I think you make no mistake about it. Once we've been fed up, once we've decided, like, okay, that's not going to go. You know, this doesn't work. We're going to fix it. I see people getting in the game, and I love it. You know, Don Titz, like 100%. the guy that was just sitting out there on the sideline listening to stuff, and he's like, you can't be telling me right. There's something isn't adding up here, you know, from the city. And so look at where he's at now. And so my hope is in these people that are jumping in. And then I also think you'll see it at the poll. I think you're going to have a voter turnout in May. That'll be the true test. Is have we had enough as a city and as a society? Are we really ready to take back our city? You'll find out on May 6th, I think.
Yeah. Well, and you know, Dan and I are happy to hear that you disagree. You know, I've had other people disagree with me as well, and you know, it's refreshing that you feel that way. And you know, maybe it's just me being I don't know, pessimistic. Maybe I don't know.
Maybe just realistic.
I mean,
it's not like that's not true if you look back over the last 10 years or 20 years.
Sure.
But
sure.
I mean, it's realistic, but then I have an optimism because what I see a change, though, and I think y'all see it as well.
Yes.
And I'm hopeful, you know.
Yeah, you know.
No, definitely. Go ahead, Dan.
Let me jump in here because there's a key word in here with this because, you know, both of you are right on this particular subject, but the key word here is change. And if you want to throw, you know, sea of change in there or whatever, people they're willing to step up and make the change now. And so we're seeing it now. We're seeing it with the people that have decided, hey, this goes back to our theme. I think it's going to be a big theme to this whole campaign. It was leadership. People are standing up. We got 23 people running for Amarillo City Council. We've got 16 that are running either for re-election or first-time candidates in Canyon ISD and Amarillo ISD. This is a lot of candidates for a local election straight across the board. And that doesn't even count the several that are running for Amarillo border regions. That's a whole different, you know, animal there. But change is the key. And I think with the candidates that we're seeing there, and Cole hit on this right from the start, there's a wide diversity of candidates that are running. Okay, from different backgrounds, different parts of the city. This is what you want to see in every election, right? You know, if you're a long-time political junkie like I am, this is what you want to see. Every single election, this wide variety, the selection of people standing up, right? And then I think what that does, hopefully, that's going to roll back onto the voters themselves who are seeing this and say, you know what? I've got to do, and we have to. And we have to do our part. The candidates have to do their part, but, you know, I have to do my part as a member of the media, too, and say, hey, here it is, folks. You've been asking for this. Here it is. Go vote. We have to encourage them. We don't want to discourage them. We want to encourage them to vote. And so we all got to do this. Here's the opportunity. You've been asking for it. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. Go vote. The people are stepping up and running. It's time for you to go vote. Once again, our guest is Coach Stanley. He's running for mayor of Amarillo. He's no stranger for the last couple of years. He is the current Place 1 member on the Amarillo City Council, 515-605-9736, if you'd like to be a part of the program. Mike, I want to kick it back to you because I think you want to go further with this discussion.
Well, I mean, I appreciate the fact that we all kind of have different views on the apathy of the voter, and I really think that it's just kind of difficult for some of our folks in our city who feel slighted by the city council, not just the city council, but I just think government in general.
Right.
You know, you have a very encouraging attitude, Cole. I guess I want to know a little bit more of how you would encourage some of our apathetic voters and just people in general, like more than just as a candidate running. Using your leadership skills, how do you encourage people? That's what I want to get to.
That's a great question. Let me give you a little more encouragement, just as an anecdote, an example. Do you know that we launched our website right at 2 weeks ago? And I've had over $20,000 worth of fundraising that has come in. And I've had people donating $10, $50, $100 on the website. Now, I've had a couple of larger ones that are close friends, and that's to be expected. But, I mean, that to me is just a true poll for an everyday citizen who just says, man, I don't know this guy, but I like him, and I want to put $100 into his campaign, and I want to support his cause because I like the message. You know, I like what I'm seeing, and I want this. And so I think I'm seeing it and I'm feeling it, but I'm on the front lines. And so maybe you're a little further off from there, and you're not quite as close to the thermometer like I am. So let me just encourage you in that, because that's not normal. You know, what you've seen in Amarillo for decades has been a handful of people that have been willing to put out, you know, tens of thousands of dollars, pick a candidate behind them, and then more or less squash the guy that, you know, only has $1,000 to run. You know, I hate to bring up Master Chief again, but we were at church this morning, and I said, man, how many votes did you get when I ran against you? And he said 4,000. I said, man, that's great. That was a lot. And I said, how much did you spend? Did you spend $5,000? And he said, I spent $846. He said, right. I had averaged 47 cents a vote. I said, are you kidding me? Like, this guy ran on $846. Now, I'm not advertising that as a good plan. I don't think you're going to get elected if that's your budget. But what I want to come back to is the fact that everyday average citizens like me and you are already involved. When you see somebody take money out of their budget, out of what they would normally spend it on, put it into your campaign, I mean, it means way more than I think you can see. So those people are definitely going to go vote, you know. And so the apathy I feel like with what we lived through COVID and through bad government over the last 2 to 3 years, this ridiculous excuse for an administration and the Biden administration, you don't have a choice to sit on the sidelines. They're not going to leave you alone. They're not going to let you just go live your life. That's what we all wanted. We wanted to let the government kind of do its own thing. We want to be left alone. We wanted to live our life. That is not your current situation. And so because of that, I think that you are taking people that are leaders and do have courage and some boldness and are willing to take risks and get out there and put themselves out there and deal with the public on an everyday basis. That's what encourages me more than anything. And I have seen everybody on the current council. You know, I'm not a Ginger fan, but like, I love the fact that, man, this lady, she works, and she has worked for 6 years at exactly what she wanted to accomplish. And I respect her as a person and her talent. I mean, that lady is skilled at what she does. Like, I know firsthand. And she has a strong personality. She's a leader. Now, I don't like the direction she's taken us as a city, and I want to go the opposite way. But the fact that there are people like that are out there, and I can respect that, I see that, and I respect it even if I disagree with it. And I hope that other people see that in me, and if they disagree with it, they're jumping in too. And so that's where a lot of my encouragement comes from. And then if you just boil it down, I want a leader that leads by example. Nobody wants words. Talk cheap, and bottom line, those are buying it anymore. And so, like, you've got to get out there and you've got to go to work. And so put in the work for a while and you stay consistent, people will start to believe it. So that's a good form of leadership. That's what I'm looking for. That's what you're looking for, Mike. You see that in people, you're willing to invest in them. You're willing to support them. And that's what I'm seeing when these guys send me $10.
You know, Cole,
yeah.
We've got a few more minutes. Cole, we've got a few more minutes with you tonight. And I want to address a couple of things from listeners that they're kind of locking onto right now. And from some earlier comments. And just to remind everybody, this is just our first interview with Cole, just like all the other candidates. We're just getting started. That's why we have them on 2 and 3 times. So because this is the fastest 5 minutes and 1 hour you'll ever get. I guarantee you. We're just getting warmed up. So don't worry, folks. We'll have Cole back on a couple more times before Election Day to dive into a lot of this stuff. But, Cole, I want to kind of wrap up with this tonight. And that is because, obviously, there's a lot of things that are going to be, right as this new city council takes office, man, it's going to be budget time. We're going to have to get down to business, roll those sleeves up, and get to work. And, public safety, infrastructure, streets, the trash situation, the parks, all of that. None of that stuff's going away. And the Civic Center, that's a whole other subject for a whole other show. We'll probably have a discussion about as well. But, kind of looking at it, Mike and I, every year, we go through this budget and we tear it apart. The city budget over the last several years, since this city council came into office in 2017, it's almost increased by almost $150 million. So there's a lot of spending going on, a lot of different stuff like that. And so it all comes down. Yeah, we know we need this, we need that. We have to separate the wants from the needs, right? So, as you're digging into this, you've made a big part of your platform is, we can address a lot of this stuff without raising taxes. And that resonates with people because, quite honestly, they're tired of one tax increase of another. They're tired of your tax appraisals. That's a whole other separate thing, folks, that you're going to have to take up with the state legislature. But tax increases and fees and stuff like that, this is who we talk to. We talk to these candidates, the people that are currently serving in office, on what we can do. As you're looking into the budget, man, how do you think we're going to be able to pay for a lot of this stuff without raising taxes?
So let me apologize for talking too much and maybe, belaboring some of the points there where we didn't get to as many topics. And so I'm sorry we didn't get a few more Q&As.
Oh, no. No, this is us tonight. We're just starting a discussion. No. This is perfect. So go ahead.
Well, so here's an interesting thing, and I'll put my name on it, and I'll tell you, I've gone through that budget. I have worked on it. I understand as much of it as I possibly could right now over the last 2 years, and the city staff has been helpful and given me things, but then I'm still digging. And the funny thing is 2 years ago I said, hey, we got $17 million in excess revenues here. What are we going to do with them? And they all looked at me like, well, you can't put that into core needs. You can't put that into fundamentals or basics. These have to be one-off things. And I said, oh, okay, well, I get it. Oh, all right, well, maybe we do spend it on, just a park update, or maybe we use it to do lighting, at the fields. It's a one-time need. Well, then year two comes around, and, man, we got $18 million in excess revenues. I start looking around and asking, well, how many years in a row do we have to have excess revenues before we start calling them what they are, which is revenues, and budgeting accordingly. And so here's the bottom line. There's $20 million in my budget right now that I know of that I can go and I can use in a better way. And so I don't have to raise your taxes right away. I don't have to cut a department. I don't have to cut, 20-25% off of any one thing. And I think we should look at that. I think that each department should be held accountable. And if there's 10%, overspend or waste, then we as a new council need to be willing to do the hard work to pull that down and put the money in the areas where we need it. But currently right now, and I'm not talking grant funding and I'm not talking anything else, we just have that money coming in a year over year, and I know that it's there, and I want to be able to affect it. I have not been allowed to affect that, and the reason being is because there are other people that are involved, and they've already decided where that money needs to go, and so consequently, I got elected, but didn't get to do what I was elected to do, which was really contribute to that team and say, hey, have you thought about this, or could we use some of this money for that, or any of that. So that hopefully that answers your question there. I know I'm pushing you on your time.
Well, Cole, I'm going to actually disagree with you on something. I think you have contributed tremendously to this team. And here's why. You have set up and brought awareness. You've brought awareness to a lot of issues. You have stood up and voted your conscience with the voters in mind, listening to them. You've done your part to help bridge that divide of mistrust, to help try to get to that government transparency that we all dream about and we want to see. I would say that, man, you have contributed a lot in being a part of this current city council in that aspect. Yeah, you've had an uphill fight a lot of times on a lot of the votes and stuff like that, but I've also seen some instances on some of the stances that you've taken. We've seen some fruit of that labor, and we've seen some direct results from that. And I think for many years we're going to see direct results of that. It's certainly, this is a lot more than just Cole Stanley, running for mayor. This is just a lot different than all this. There seems to be a movement afoot, that has started. And that people want change, and they want a government of the people, by the people, for the people, right? And that's what they really want to see in Amarillo, Texas again. And that, my friend, you definitely have contributed, and I know a lot of folks in this community are greatly appreciative of it.
Man, I appreciate that, and I'm working hard. I'm doing what I can. Like anybody, you want to do more. And I hope that I always want to do more, and I'm never satisfied with that. But I appreciate that, and man, I'm excited. I look forward to being able to do more. And May 6th, we'll know whether I get to go to work down there or, man, I get to go back to the golf course.
Well, you know what? I wouldn't put that team money aside just yet, man.
All right. I won't buy any new clubs just yet.
That's right. Hey, Cole, real quick, tell everybody where they can learn more about it. And like I said, folks, I want to let you know this is just the first time that we're having Cole on. Yeah, if you watched after, last week I did a little 2-minute thing with Cole after the firefighters endorsement and stuff like that. So we're going to have Cole back on a couple more times. We're going to really get down to the nuts and bolts of these campaigns and these discussions, because once again, we want everybody to be informed when they go. We want to make your brain hurt. That good ice cream freeze brain? That's how bad we want it to hurt, that it's so full of knowledge that we're giving you off of this show. Because we also want to encourage ideas and solutions and bring everybody together. And I think we're on the right track with the discussions we're having with the candidates as we move forward towards the May election. And so once again, Cole will be back on us a couple of more times before the election. Hey, Cole, real quick, tell everybody where they can learn more about your campaign, social media, website, all that good stuff, man.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. Always a good, quick hour. It goes by super fast. I have an incredible team put together. It's Creative Cannon over there. Those guys are fantastic. They've built a website. It's ColeStanleyForAmarillo.com. You go there. You can request a sign. We're expecting those signs to be ready in about a week. We've got a team that will bring them out, put them in your yard for you. You can make a contribution there if you want to. We're not even asking people. I mean, obviously we need money, but we're just not even asking it, and it's just kind of coming in. And then these guys have done a really good job of taking interviews like yours and putting it on my website so that you can go in and you can hear what I said 2 years ago, what I did in a meeting, what I didn't do. Yep. You can read some things that we've put my name on in the way of hey, this is my opinion, this is my philosophy. So ColeStanleyForAmarillo.com is an easy place to go and get introduced to us. And I appreciate anybody who's willing to give me a chance and to kind of inspect what I've done and see if I'm worthy of your vote come May 6th.
Hey, Mike, you got any final comments before we let Cole go?
Yeah, other than to say it was great to talk to you, man. I look forward to actually getting to spend some time in person with you coming up here before the election.
Man, me too. It's going to be a fun 2.5 months. So here we go.
Let's
Here
go.
we go, man. Here we go. Cole, thanks a lot, my friend. It's always a pleasure.
Hey, thank you guys. Really appreciate y'all. You guys have a great night.
Hey, you bet.
Thanks, man. You
hey,
too.
once again,